So friends, good evening to all of you. On behalf of Higher Education Forum, we extend you a very hearty welcome for this interesting program, faculty development program, which is in the offering today. And we have today a very important program by the name itself, and that is the emerging technologies, and it's relevant to the higher education, which is very close to the heart of each one of us as teachers, as the students. So I'm sure that the session is going to be extremely fruitful one, as we look forward to an interesting discussion on the what are the technologies which are emerging, what are the trends which are emerging in the areas of the technologies, particularly with reference to the higher education in the India as well as all over the world. Now, to talk on this particular topic, we have an extremely accomplished faculty, a dear colleague of ours. He's also a member of Higher Education Forum. Let me welcome Professor Sunil Patel amidst us. Professor Sunil Patel is the former director and the professor of Symbiosis Institute of Telecom Management from the year 2009 to 2016. And previously, he has also got an a very excheckered career as professor and the Dean Academics of I-Square IT, which is International Institute of Information Technology, which is another leading engineering college in the city of the Pune. Professor Sunil Patel has been a combination of the academics and the corporate excellence. He has also worked in the T-Systems, which is a subsidiary of the Deutsche Telekom Germany, recognizing technology in the very senior positions in the country. And most importantly, he has got a very long, and interesting and important international stint for the 20 years with the AT&T Bell Labs in the New Jersey, USA. He rose to the rank of the AT&T Labs as a director, wireless technology group, and he was also responsible for setting up the offshore developmental cell of the AT&T Lab at Bangalore. So we are extremely pleased to have Dr. Sunil Patel with us. He has got an extremely good what you call to the technology, to the strategy, to the leadership, a combination of everything. He is a B from India. He's also a ME from India from BJTI. He is an MBA from USA, and he also a PhD from the Symbiosis International University. He has got a large number of publications. So we hand over the forum to Professor Sunil Patel and request all of you, please, because I see a lot of noise which is coming up, all of you to kindly mute yourself, because I think that is the minimum courtesy which we should have in a session like this. Kindly mute yourself, and the floor is open to Professor. Professor Sunil Patel, you have to unmute yourself. Professor Sunil Patel, you are muted. You are muted.
Sir, I think.
Hello, can you hear?
Yeah, now it's okay. Perfectly okay.
Okay. Well, good evening to all. First of all, thanks, Professor Sengupta. I mean, I've been associated with Higher Education Forum for some time now, and it's a wonderful initiative. I mean, this is a need of the hour, and started this initiative at a very right time. And again, thanks, Professor Sengupta, for this opportunity. I've been attending webinars before, but this is the first time I'm in a different setup. Like I'll speak, and you all are supposed to interact or at least respond to what I'm talking. It's an interesting topic, emerging technologies. We all have been talking about this for so long, and we keep hearing about emerging technologies. And equally important is how it affects higher education institutes, the pedagogy, the teaching styles, the student experience. What is the impact of all this? So I have about 30 slides. We have, I think, about hour and a half. I definitely don't plan to talk for hour and a half. At the most, 40 to 45 minutes, and then rest of the time, let's interact. Let's discuss. Uh, we will discuss technologies, and more importantly, we will also discuss the relevance to education institutes. Okay, so the you can see the next slide, which
Yeah, I can see.
usually starts in any discussion on emerging technologies. No discussion or presentation can start without Industry 4.0, because I think Industry 4.0 actually triggered all these emerging technologies discussion and impact of these technologies in industry. Now, there are four very important components of Industry 4.0, and I'm not going to spend any time on talking about previous industrial revolutions and what happened. But one thing is for sure, starting from Industrial Revolution 1 till today, the major change has been moving away from manpower and moving towards machines and moving towards more automation. Uh, so the journey has been actually, we talked before more of manpower, but now it's automation. Industry 3.0 actually started automation, which India completely missed out, and China capitalized big time in the manufacturing industry. 4.0 has a special significance as far as automation is concerned, because a lot of information and data is now available. So let's look at the first component, which talks about connectivity, data, and computational power. Connectivity, I personally believe that it's a backbone. The connectivity for any industrial revolution or any functioning, if the communication backbone is not strong enough, then nothing can work. You can show me even a single company that can function without telecom or communication. So it's a backbone. Now, once the backbone is strong, then we can think of many possibilities. And that's exactly what is happening today in Industry 4.0 is many possibilities, which is actually generating a lot of information and a lot of data. As far as computational power is concerned, again, it goes back many, many years, and we have consistently seen, and we all are familiar with Moore's law, uh, that computational power, storage, memory systems have consistently improved over the years. So we have computational power along with data and connectivity as a first critical component of 4.0. The next component is obviously analytics and intelligence, because once you have data, your obvious question is, what do I do with this data? Well, that answers is you start analyzing, you start using that data and see how it is beneficial to you. So analytics plays an important role. And if the analytics is used correctly, it is going to provide you a lot of intelligence in running the companies, running the institutes, running the operations. So that's the second very critical component. Third component of 4.0 is human machine interaction. And again, we have been talking about RPA, which is robotic process automation. The new term in industry is called integrated process automation. We have been talking about automated, autonomous vehicles, chatbots, and so on. So again, the third component is human interaction with machines. We have been actually interacting with machines for a long time. If you look at operators in a shop floor, operators have been using machines. There have been programmable logic controllers. There are computerized numerical control machines. So we have been interacting with them, but we have not been using a lot of analytics and the data which the machines have started producing. But they have been producing. We just realized that they are very useful. And the fourth component, obviously, is manufacturing. Again, we are all familiar with 3D printing. Everyone is talking about 3D printing. What is 3D printing? It is an advance or new technique of manufacturing. And then there are additional things. People are constantly talking about climate, and there is a lot of awareness about climate, and that comes with renewable energy. So there is a solar energy, there is a wind energy. Uh, there is a drive to move away from fossil fuels and move towards energy sources which are less harmful to the climate. And nanoparticles again relates with nanotechnology, which forms the fourth component, and that is part of manufacturing. So when with all this, obvious question that comes to us is, why are we talking about this? What is different that is happening in industry? Because technologies could be useless. One can, and I come from Bell Labs, having spent 20 years, we designed and created many technologies which never got to see the industry. We were in our own little world, developing fantastic technologies, completely missing out on what the market is looking for or requiring. So there has to be enablers. There has to be places where technologies will be used. And these technologies are going to produce some benefits. Then only those will be accepted. So what are the key drivers? Information data, as we say, evolution in infrastructure. What is happening in infrastructure is, if you look at manufacturing, services, white goods, transportation, the designs are changing. People want much better control on these services. People want much better information about how these services or these equipments are functioning. People want accessibility from anywhere, any place, anytime to this equipment. So industry manufacturers are now producing infrastructure which this technology could be used. Third is digitization across enterprises. As the technologies are coming to the scene, again, we keep talking about artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is not nothing new. It has been around for the last 50, 60 years. I think we all know how IBM computer had beaten the world chess champion. So artificial intelligence is not new. And now, with the availability of information and data, and with industry supporting with manufacturing systems and services which can use artificial intelligence, so digitization across enterprises is happening. Competitiveness, companies are using all this to enhance their competitiveness. They're trying to give much better customer experience. And all this is actually changing the business models itself. The business models which companies have been using for past so many years are no longer valid. They have to change. So companies are changing and adopting new business models, shrinking design cycles. I mean, we have a latest example. A vaccine for corona was developed in less than 18 months. This was unthinkable a few years ago. The reason is, again, a lot of information, a lot of tools and technologies available, a lot of analytics that can be done very fast, and a lot of scientific information. So we could design a vaccine, so many vaccines in 18 months, shrinking design cycles and adopting agile methodologies. And all this boils down to is cost-effective operations. So these are the key drivers. And these drivers are actually driving technologies. And that's how the technologies are evolving, because they are finding home where they could be used. So let's jump into technologies. As I said, communication is the backbone. So first is communication. Now, communication could be wired or wireless. Wired communication is pretty much on its way out. So it's wireless communication. as I said, any device, anytime, any place, anywhere is the expectation of an individual and companies when it comes to communication. Obviously, we are hearing 5G deployment, which is going to happen very soon. 5G is a technology which is going to provide a much higher data throughput. It's a little different methodology. It is using spectrum, which is the most important commodity for wireless communication, in the most effective way, most optimum way. So optimum use of spectrum will happen in 5G. Now, when 5G is going to be deployed, what's going to happen to other technologies which have been deployed and currently used? They will all coexist. No one has to worry that my 4G phone is going to be useless and I'll have to buy a 5G phone as soon as that is deployed. No, the technologies will coexist for substantial length of time, and there are business reasons for that. So no worry, no one has to worry about immediately disposing of 4G phones. All this communication is going to create, and it is creating data. There are predictions that by 2025 or by 2030, there will be 50 billion devices connected across the world. Just imagine when 50 billion devices are connected and each device is producing data, producing information, there will be explosion of data, explosion of information. And this is happening in society. This will happen in enterprises. This will happen in various services sector. So when it comes to data, it's going to be volume, velocity, because it's going to be very fast. The data will just start coming at us at a tremendous speed. Variety of data, because when it comes to 50 billion devices, there'll be a various formats, variety of data coming from variety of devices and sensors and actuators and monitors and everything. That will lead to analytics. The last bullet I just put down, OTT platforms are posing tough competition to wireless operators. We see this. And then Netflix and Disney and Amazon Prime and so many of them nowadays, what is happening is they have actually come up with a wonderful business model to take on much larger wireless operators for competition. And all the data seems to indicate that they are so far winning the race. So wireless operators are under tremendous pressure to look at their business models and ask a question to themselves that are they going to continue to work as a utility or change their business models and be more competitive to take on OTT platforms. Next one, when it comes to emerging technologies, obviously artificial intelligence. Again, nothing new. Artificial intelligence is data, information combined with computers and machines. That's all artificial intelligence. Now, why it is artificial intelligence is because all this put together, computers and machines and data and analytics put together, it can solve many problems that we face. It can also help us in better decisions, either speed up the decision making or even change our decisions depending on how the conditions are in business. Now, when it comes to AI, I have put 3 AIs there. In industry, there are other terms for this. People call weak AI, strong AI, but those are not the right terms. I think narrow intelligence, general intelligence, and super intelligence. Narrow intelligence is already here. And we see that. We see that in, we have Alexa at home, and Alexa listens to us, follows our commands, and delivers the service, the songs, the music, the birthday songs, and whatnot. autonomous vehicles. That is part of narrow intelligence. The differentiation between narrow and general is general intelligence has a capability to learn and plan for future. The systems don't exist, at least today, that they can function in that way. The systems which exist today are primarily managed and fed and trained by humans, and they just follow them. It's like a rule based, but this is like a database or information based. While super intelligence is actually better than human brain. Uh, we don't know when this will happen, but I put my bets on that it will happen. It will happen down the road, may not be in 5, 10, 15 years, but researchers will continue working on it. And then there'll be systems based on super intelligence. Machine learning. So when it comes to artificial intelligence, obviously, someone would say, what is machine learning? Machine learning is, again, it's a part of artificial. This is not something different. It is a subset of artificial intelligence. Machine learning, a machine learns based on the information that we feed that machine. The machine actually runs an algorithm. People call that as a training sequence. It takes the training sequence or data as a training sequence. It compares that. There is something called error function. It compares with the actual information and tries to see how much is the error between the training information that is fed into me and the information that is coming to me. And the algorithm basically tries to reduce that distance or the difference between the actually fed and actually received from the machine. That's all the machine intelligence is. That is the algorithm which actually works that way. It's a minimization of the error function. When the error function is minimized and the real data matches as close as possible within a threshold to the actual data, then we say that it is working to a reasonable accuracy, and that optimized model is functioned or used by machines. That is the machine learning. In a nutshell, I mean, one can go into details how algorithms are designed, how algorithms work, various kinds of algorithms, but this is a nutshell. This is a basic definition. Obviously, next is deep learning. We started with artificial intelligence, then machine intelligence. Deep learning is no different. It is another subset of machine learning. So if you look at the hierarchy, it is artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. Now, what is deep learning? Deep learning is primarily, as the name itself suggests, deep. And when what is deep is how deep the layers of networks are formed. And these layers of networks are actually formed, which are called as neural networks. In our brain, we have billions of neurons. It's extremely difficult to simulate even a single neuron. It is such a complex mechanism. But in deep learning, we try to imitate as close as possible or as best as possible with existing hardware and software that we have. And we create multiple layers of these neural networks. And the system that runs this, and there is an example which is given here, the input to this is all photographs, pictures. It's a very classic example of image processing or pattern recognition. So that goes as an input to the first layer. And what it does is the first layer actually accepts the input and it defines the gray levels. What are the different gray levels, or how a typical face has so many gray levels or not. Pixels, how many pixels are there? All those image processing related information is extracted there. When it goes to second layer actually extracts features from the face. And then the faces, the features which are extracted are compared with the reference features which are stored in the system. And as I said before, error function here also, a minimization is computed as far as the features comparison is concerned, and output comes, which is the recognized pattern or recognized face or recognized picture. So a simple example of image processing, a deep learning example. This could be used in manufacturing operations. As a matter of fact, my study in Canada involved quality control using image processing. And what we had done was the engine piston head on the assembly line, typical in General Motors or Ford assembly line. There are pistons constantly on the conveyor belt, and the quality control has to be done continuously. So the technique was used like this. A pattern recognition technique was employed. The features were extracted of a healthy piston head, and it was in real time compared with what was coming on the conveyor belt, and a go no go decision was given in real time. These are, again, as I said, technologies have been around for some time. They are finding newer applications now in industry. Okay, the next is virtual reality. Virtual reality, again, what is it? Obviously, we use this technology as human beings, so we have to have a mechanism which is going to create a virtual environment for us. And that's why you need certain gadgets. You need a glove, you need a headset, and we are the ones who are using it. Now, when you start using this glove and headset, you are actually creating a reality closer to you. You can think of as if I'm sitting in a library of the institute. You can imagine that I'm going to the shelf and taking out certain book and I'm scanning it. To create that, you need these gadgets. There are actually many examples, and then you can see on the right side of the slide, Matsushita has designed your kitchen, virtual kitchen. So before renovation is done, put on this gear and design your kitchen and see how it's going to look like. You actually feel it, how it's going to be. Demonstrate a car safety features by Volvo and many others. Last one is very important, healthcare. Train doctors in surgery on virtual cadavers. It's very difficult to get cadavers nowadays, even for medical students to practice. But it's a disadvantage they have to live with. So why not use virtual reality? And you can actually conduct dissections and go into the body and start seeing various components and all those things. Next is transportation. Emerging technologies in transportation. And the example here is autonomous vehicles. Now, if you look at autonomous vehicles and the status of that today, it is at level 2. It's going to take few years before autonomous vehicles will reach level 5. What is level 5 is the vehicles will have much more intelligence, and they will be much closer to driving the way we drive. And then there are several explanations here. Now, over the period, what is happening is the sensors, monitors, the prices have substantially come down. Computational power has tremendously gone up, especially graphic processing unit, because that's what is needed, autonomous vehicles. Computational power is important. In this case, it's a graphic processing that is important. But there are challenges. If you happen to drive in Pune, in my opinion, it's one of the worst cities to drive in. Horrible driving habits of people, whether it's two-wheeler or four-wheeler. Now, how do you expect autonomous vehicle to drive in such a traffic? So no one has to worry that autonomous vehicles will start rolling on the streets in Pune in next 5 years. No, it's not going to happen, because number one is we're not going to change. So vehicles will have to change. The autonomous vehicle technology will have to change. And that's where human intelligence is coming in. If there is someone pushing a stroller, we know immediately to stop. The autonomous vehicle may not know that there is someone who is pushing a stroller or carrying an umbrella, and the vehicle may just go. And that is why in the news we see once in a while crashes and accidents of autonomous vehicles happening in California. It's because the technology is still not matured enough to understand these scenarios, which humans can easily understand. In Pune, when you ride on a two-wheeler, half of the time people are giving signs to others by either hand or neck or face. And people understand each other's signs. These vehicles will never understand those. But that is a technology which uses a lot of information, a lot of sensors, a lot of computational power, and it will mature over a period of time, but it will take time. There are some additional criteria. So the research shows that you have to drive thousands and thousands of miles before the vehicle can actually achieve any acceptable limit of accuracy. That's where, again, the neural network will help. There is another technology when it comes to autonomous vehicles called vehicle to infrastructure technology. The vehicle may be programmed to stop for the red light, but many times we see there may be some road construction going on, but there is a person standing there holding a green flag. So irrespective of the traffic light is red, he waves a green flag and tells you that go ahead. You don't need to stop. Now the autonomous vehicle won't understand this, because it's looking at the traffic light, which is red. It says, no, I'm not going to move. I'll stop. So again, there are various technologies which need to be designed. The technology needs to be matured. It's going to take time to reach level 5. Healthcare. Artificial intelligence applications in healthcare. There are many areas where healthcare can use artificial intelligence. And I have listed some of those, but some of the important ones, if you see, dosage error reduction. When the patient is under treatment, a medical doctor actually tells the patient that take this medicine and so much is the dosage. This is primarily based on his understanding or her understanding on the patient's condition and his knowledge. Artificial intelligence can actually reduce the error that may happen in the judgment of a medical practitioner. AI will use a lot of information about that patient from the past, from the records, all the information it will use in the algorithm, and it will recommend a dosage to that patient. The studies have shown that the error is reduced substantially using artificial intelligence, the dosage error. Again, there are other applications where robot-assisted surgery. This is happening now in many hospitals, especially orthopedic surgeries. Many orthopedic surgeries are conducted using robots. When we say robots, it is not simply a humanoid we are talking. When it comes to artificial intelligence, people are using cameras inside. People are going in with various instruments inside the body. They can see those images on the monitors. Information or data is picked up again by the computational systems attached to the instruments, and the doctors make decisions. So there is a semi-robotic surgeries constantly happening across India, but the time will come where humanoids programmed or running with certain algorithms will be able to undertake certain surgeries. So there are various applications in healthcare as far as artificial intelligence is concerned. Financial technology. Again, we keep hearing on televisions about Paytm and PhonePe and all kinds of financial institutions who are offering various services to the users. These are all financial services using technology. Paytm is not actually a finance company, but they're using technology in a much smarter way and providing a much better financial experience to the users. There are other applications of artificial intelligence in financial technology is credit risk analysis. You want to go to a bank and apply for a loan. It's a risk bank is taking, but it could be a calculated risk, and that's where AI can be very useful. AI will actually look at the credit history of the applicant, transactions performed by applicant in the past, and based on all that, will take a decision. Chatbots are being used in industry nowadays very heavily. These are chatbots primarily for customer support. As natural language processing is getting better, the chatbots actually speak to you. Sometimes it may sound synthetic voice, but they speak to you, and you can listen and then take their guidance. Some more applications, personal finance and robo advisory, based on, again, your investment options or your profile and your expectations, your investment horizon. There are chatbots and there are softwares which can guide you in your investments and accomplish or getting your objectives. KYC in India, KYC it's a tedious process, takes time, and sometimes it's a headache. So AI can make it more efficient and help improve that process of KYC. Claims processing is again same thing because it's a risk, but it can be improved. And studies have shown that 30% more accuracy in claims processing. There's a lot of fraud in claim processing, but it can be eliminated to a larger extent using artificial intelligence. Any questions, any comments so far? Because I can go on otherwise. Should I go on? Okay. Blockchain. As I said, communication is an important technology as a backbone. So is a blockchain nowadays. Blockchain is turning out to be a critical technology It started with finance sector. It started with cryptocurrencies, but now we see blockchain has applications across various processes and across various industry verticals. Companies are actually embracing blockchain and deploying blockchain. What is blockchain? It's a distributed ledger. It's a shared system. So all the users, every user is a node, and this node is actually forming a network. And the transactions which are happening on this network are happening in a block. When certain number of transactions are complete, that block is complete, and the block moves on, and another block is created. Once that block is complete, the third block is created. That's why it is called as a blockchain. And every block has a set of transactions embedded in it. There are some use cases in securities. Blockchain is going to be extremely important because, again, the reason is fraud. We know that many frauds are happening in securities market, although there are regulators and monitoring this, but even then there are elements who can create havoc in the markets. Blockchain will create a lot of transparency in transactions in financial markets. Record keeping. The best example is voting. We all know that every election, there is not a single day that goes by without discussion on voting frauds. So to a large extent, that can be eliminated using blockchain. Title records, again, when it comes to lands or ownership of apartment, ownership of house, we just know how tedious these processes are, how fraudulent this could be, how mismanaged they could be. But once the blockchain is implemented and a very high level of transparency and accountability is introduced, then these processes could be much safer, easier, and produce results much better. Smart contracts, again, based on blockchain, nowadays outsourcing contracts, it's a headache between a client and a service provider. The service provider says, I have delivered. The client says, no, you have not delivered, not to my satisfaction. The payment doesn't happen, and it goes on. Then the arbitration, the legal complications, all this could be avoided by bringing a very high level of transparency using blockchain. And there are companies who are actually implementing now these smart contracts. So obviously from blockchain, that leads to a discussion on virtual currency, because that's how blockchain actually discussion started. Digital currency, a lot of discussion nowadays on cryptocurrencies, a lot of discussion nowadays even on Facebook about how Azim Premji is making money, how Amitabh Bachchan is making money on cryptocurrencies, what are the loopholes in cryptocurrencies. Well, here is a virtual currency. There is no physical currency here. It's a completely digital format. It exists in digital format. Why crypto? Because it is encrypted. Entire transaction information, payments, amount to be paid, amount to be received is all encrypted using encryption algorithms or hashing algorithms. And that's why it's a cryptocurrency or virtual currency. Again, in this case, blockchain is the backbone of it. Bitcoin happens to be the most popular, although there are hundreds of virtual currencies nowadays in market. There are many. There are Litecoins, there are Ethereum, and so many. And all these virtual currencies have their exchanges and everything. So looks like the financial world is slowly moving towards an alternate currency. We may be still far off from that because number one, there is no central bank here. There is no regulatory agency to regulate the money flow. And that is exactly what the inventors of cryptocurrency wanted. They wanted some regulator or bank out of this. We don't know how the taxation will happen. And that's why it is primarily a network-based currency, and transactions happen on network. What are the challenges with digital currency? Transaction speed and confirmation. Now, what happens here is you go to a restaurant and you say that I need a cup of tea. That may cost 10 rupees. And you are telling the vendor that you're going to pay with a cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. And that Bitcoin may be, let's say, 0.0001 Bitcoin, the cost of that cup of tea. Now, what may happen is once the transaction is done, in case of digital currency, it is not approved immediately. It goes on the network. On the network, it gets into a blockchain, and the blockchain has to be mined. It has to be approved. Once it is approved by all, there are actually agencies who mine these transactions. And once they approve that, yes, this is valid, then only the transaction goes through. This may take time. In case of Bitcoin, it may take anything between 2 to 10 minutes because of the traffic. In case of other digital currencies, it may take a little shorter time. But compare this with our regular currency. We go to the vendor, we pull out 10 rupees bill from the wallet, give it to him, he immediately gives the tea, and the transaction is done. So that's a concern, that's a challenge for digital currency, how to speed it up. Price volatility, again, this is happening because if you look at the market of Bitcoin, the exchange continues to vary by minute. And now the vendor will say, if you're going to pay me and my transaction is going to take 10 minutes to approve, by that time, the price is changed between the rupee and Bitcoin. So I may not get 10 rupees, I may get only 9 rupees. The possibility I may get 15 rupees also, but the price volatility is there. Transaction cost. Mining transactions cost money. The agencies who actually mine these transactions, there is something called reward. Once you have a successful mine, then you get X number of Bitcoins, which is a cost. So there is a transaction cost. And there are some other topics also. Market liquidity. Security is a big challenge. Although we say blockchain and transparency and accountability, there are hackers who actually can hack your wallet. The concept of wallet in digital currency is same as the wallet that we have in the pocket. But there is a cold wallet and a hot wallet. What is recommended is, as we do, in the hot wallet, you keep little money to use that wallet for your transactions. Cold wallet, you put rest of the chunk and you move the money whenever you need. But hackers actually hack it. So even counterparty risk, because there are other parties involved, like payment gateways and all that. And that's why people are not comfortable with it. I'm going to try not to be too technical because I see people actually dropping off. I'm trying to keep, I'll try to keep it at a very high level so that it's not very heavy. IoT applications. IoT is going to be everywhere. It is already happening. There is another term called IIoT, industrial applications, so IIoT. But their factories, human health, work sites, everywhere, the sensors are going to be used, tags are going to be used, and all of these are going to produce a lot of information in bits and bytes, which is going to be collected at a central place. And obviously, the wireless communication will be used to capture this information. In this slide, there is a data also provided in terms of expected billions of dollars of business by 2030 in various applications. So if anyone is interested in knowing the business potential of IoT applications by 2030, the slide has it. 3D printing. What is 3D printing? 3D printing is nothing but additive manufacturing. In our regular manufacturing, we take a big chunk of iron, we put it on the machine, and we start removing pieces from that iron to get that piece of iron into a desired shape. That is subtractive manufacturing. 3D printing is additive in the sense that it is the components are formed by layer over layer of material. There are various technologies like sintering, melting, but again, it's depending on the material that is used, the temperatures which are used, the light sources which are used. Depending on that, there are various technologies. There are a whole set of materials which are used in 3D printing also. Advantages and disadvantages, it's a long list, but in nutshell, 3D printing is an excellent technology for prototyping. For any conventional manufacturing, you have to create molds, you have to design it, then get the material in the mold, wait for the mold to be cooled, then start refining it on the machine. So you have to go through a very lengthy process in prototyping in conventional manufacturing. In 3D printing, once the design is fed to the computer machine, the machine actually starts putting material layer by layer as per the design that is fed to the computer. So very easily a prototype can be manufactured in a much shorter time. It could be sometimes from minutes to a couple of hours, which the conventional manufacturing may take a few days. So there are advantages. There are some disadvantages. Because it is formed layer over layer, it may not have such a strength as the conventional manufactured piece may have. And it may also need certain post-processing to refine the component, which is the output of 3D printer. Robotic process automation, RPA. RPA is going to eliminate human errors. Again, once the human errors are eliminated, customers are more happy. They'll have a much better customer experience. You are delivering your products and services much more efficiently, on time, to the satisfaction of customer. And in the process, the cost of manufacturing, cost of operation is reduced, and hence the total cost of ownership is reduced. We already see RPA implemented across industries. Unfortunately, it is going to eliminate many jobs, which primarily are repetitive in nature or which don't need very high level of intelligence. And there is a serious concern that this may impact Indian IT industry very severely. There are predictions almost 60% of jobs could be lost in next 5 years unless those employees working on these repetitive type of functions are not reskilled or retrained for new technologies. So what are the key takeaways? Fourth industrial revolution is shaping up as a transformational. We keep hearing digital transformation happening everywhere. Communication will be the backbone, and everything is going to be driven by intelligence. Machines are not going to replace humans. There is a concern that eventually will be useless. Satya Nadella of Microsoft actually says that more jobs will be created than now. In the future, the only thing is we'll have to be prepared for those jobs through our education system. So no worry that the jobs will be lost and people will be unemployed. And that's what even experts are saying. We just have to be prepared for that. And that actually goes into our next topic about relevance to HEIs. All these technologies, how is it relevant to HEIs? If we have to be doing better, and are we actually prepared? So let's dive into this, and then I'll open it up for some interactive discussion. If we are talking about digital transformation in companies, and we're talking about digital transformation, or we're teaching digital transformation to students, why not have digital transformation in institutes? The academic institutes should actually implement digital transformation at the same rate or the speed as the industry is doing it. And that basically brings to our discussion, how can we use artificial intelligence? I'm actually mentoring a company in Bangalore, and they use artificial intelligence and use student data, student profiles, and using artificial intelligence, they are creating a sort of map, a roadmap for a student or an individual for the future. So artificial intelligence, again, as an institute, we have a lot of information about students. The student usually stays in an institute for 4 years for undergrad. And in 4 years, a lot of information is created about that student, which institute has or university has. Are we using that? Maybe not. So let's start using that information, which will actually help that student in the future. So artificial intelligence, tech and data-driven analysis, that's exactly what I was talking about. Automated institutions, even today, if we look at B schools and T schools, a lot of processes are manual. We are still writing registers, we're still entering a lot of data, we're still maintaining paper copies. Not only that, at the time of accreditation and assessment, we're still submitting binders and binders of information to the assessing members of the team. Why? I mean, we are higher education institutes. There has to be better way to provide information to students, to regulators, to agencies, to government, everyone, and to parents also. There has to be better way. There's so many technologies now available. Similarly, blockchain. Why are we not using blockchain in academic institutions? A very high level of transparency will be created. Online exam management system. When you try to have online exam, the burden is actually on faculty. There is a concern that student may involve in fraudulent activities, but then the burden is on faculty to create excellent set of questions. that the students will not have opportunity to create frauds. Blended teaching learning is, I just added that. Another reason for this is distance learning will be the part of learning in the future, which in my opinion could be cloud-based. A student can be allowed to take any course from any institutions, from any university with proper credits, and make sure that that course is accredited, that course is approved, and if the faculty members can actually assess the student for that subject. But this can happen. There is no reason why courses could not be cloud-based. Now, when it comes to teaching these new courses, especially in B schools, if you look at a B school, we are teaching students HR, finance, marketing, operations, all these core disciplines we're teaching them. My take is, while we are teaching them these core disciplines, and while the industry is completely digitizing, the entire enterprise is digitizing, companies are digitizing, clients are digitizing, governments are digitizing, are we actually teaching these disciplines with reference to technologies? As a matter of fact, even Kotler says that my books are not relevant to students who are studying in Asia. A different set of books need to be written because the business conditions are different, the culture is different, expectations are different. His book is typically written for Western atmosphere. Similarly, when it comes to technologies, we have to start teaching these courses by keeping in mind technologies and how we combine these technologies with basic disciplines and deliver to students. So when they go to industry, they will not be completely strangers. Make extensive use of simulations. Again, you cannot have entire infrastructure all the time in the institute. That's exactly where simulations come in. Simulate everything and show to students, or let the students simulate it. That way students will get a lot of hands-on practice. They will actually see it. And the last thing is, the course content for teaching this, especially technology or technology management subjects, must be weighted by industry experts, so that we know that we're teaching a correct subject in a correct way and in a very relevant way. The next slide talks about faculty. So if this needs to be done, what is the role of faculty? I am saying faculty must prepare new subjects related to emerging technologies and management. My experience is, as a director at Symbiosis, every time I used to discuss with faculty for a new subject and used to ask faculty member to raise a hand who would like to teach that, no hand will go up. And I used to wind up teaching that course myself. That shouldn't happen. Faculty members should take initiative and prepare new subjects which are about these new technologies and how to manage these technologies in the industries. If required, send them for training, workshops, send them to companies for internship. Let them see it by hand, how companies work, what needs to be taught. And that's why I collaborate with SMEs in industry. They must actively participate. Here is an example, faculty members. You know, when it comes to artificial intelligence, the world is looking at United States and China to take the lead. No one is talking about India going to be the leader in artificial intelligence. People are saying artificial intelligence, that is Chinese. They will probably lead, or they'll be much farther ahead. As a matter of fact, a few weeks ago, they tested hypersonic missile, which was driven by artificial intelligence. Where is India? Are our faculty members actively participating in standardization process? Are we influencing forums? Are we ensuring that industry artificial knowledge base will be created in India, for India, in the interest of India, and create standards that way? Faculty has to do that. And they must have sponsored projects. So what are the solutions? We expect this to faculty to do. We must incentivize them. They need to be motivated. Otherwise, they can say, why should I do it? I'm satisfying minimum requirements of UGC. Why should I do this? Set up centers of excellence in collaboration with industry. I went to Korea University. They have beautiful centers of excellence set up in the campus by Korean companies, Samsung, LG, and many others, funded and provided by them, their infrastructure, hardware, software, available to faculty and students to study and do experiments. Why don't we do that? You go to private institutions here, they don't want companies to enter because then the ownership goes away. Industry alumni collaboration. Alumni connect with companies or institutes is absolutely weak. With the exception of from a few premier institutions where alumni are actually putting funds and money in creating infrastructure, most institutes have no alumni connect. They are not emotionally connected. So we need to do that so that faculty members can actually work on some of these programs. Now, when you work on emerging technologies, obviously you are expected to create intellectual property, and it will happen because it's something new you're working on. What is important is there enough awareness? Do our faculty members actually understand the process of patenting or what is required as a documentation for patenting? So creation of intellectual property is very important. That can happen through teaching and conducting research in emerging technologies or applied research. But that intellectual property needs to be monetized, needs to be capitalized, needs to be patentized, and needs to be protected. And I suggest faculty members should be actually made aware of all this. Electives. Can we offer emerging technology electives to students? Now, as a B school, the answer probably is no. Or technology management to a T school, the answer probably is no. Because we are so siloed. When it comes to B school, we teach certain courses. When it comes to T school, we teach certain courses. The world is changed. The world expects B schools and T schools work together and create graduates who understand technologies and management both. So electives need to be designed for emerging technologies in that way. If we cannot do that, I'm recommending procure those courses from company academies. There are company academies in India and outside India who actually provide such courses. If there is money, procure those and offer to students. Important bullet here, ethical use of various technologies. We must offer courses to students on ethical use, especially in case of artificial intelligence. It can be easily misused. So I strongly recommend that when it comes to electives for teaching this technology related or technology management related subjects, ethics must be combined with it. And on the right side, again, I'm suggesting MOOCs and collaborations and everything. Empowering faculty. Where is the empowerment? we are expecting faculty members to do all this in the previous slides. Are the faculty members truly empowered? Or if you just look at the diagram on the right-hand side, faculty is at the center. Look at the circles the faculty has to go through for a simple approval, from institute management to university management to the founding organization management to MHRD to UGC. I mean, teacher and student are the most important stakeholders in the chain, and teachers are the closest to the student. They are in the middle of this circle, but look at the circles around this. By the time the faculty or the teacher gets the approval, it takes a very long time. The teacher is completely demotivated by then, because mostly the answer is no. There is no empowerment. So we expect a lot when it comes to technology or teaching technology management subjects from faculty, but we're not empowering them. We need to empower them so that they can truly work on all these expectations. So key takeaways are technologies will evolve, but industry academia relationship, continuous research is important. Empower faculty members, connect with alumni, and most importantly, the T schools and B schools must collaborate. Then only emerging technology courses and technology management courses could be offered to B schools and T school students. Thank you for listening so far. I see the dwindling presence, so I'll stop here. Let's open up the forum and let's have some discussion.
I think people can unmute themselves and ask questions.
Sir, I am Ramni here. Can I ask a question, Dr. Sunil?
Hello.
Please go ahead.
Sir, it was a really mind-boggling development of emerging technologies. Hello, are you able to hear me?
Thank you. Thank you.
But basically, my background is telecommunications. So I am more concerned with the technology of the first one, what you said in the Revolution 4.0, connectivity. See, corresponding to all these emerging technologies, there has to be research, development in reducing the bandwidth for each of the services. I think to my knowledge, after MP2 to MP4, there has not been much of effect in reducing the bandwidth for even simple things of music. It is the industry requirement for accommodating more TV channels in a 7 megahertz bandwidth, which forced the research institute to come up with 16 QAM, 64, 256 QAM, and today you have a set-top box which gives you hundreds of channels into your home. So my requirement is to support all this. We need some research, and particularly with your background of signal processing, you can tell us what is the effort going on in reducing the bandwidth. A simple zoom for a satisfactory service, you need somewhere about 1.2 kilobits per second. And then again, we are not sure what is the latency provided. What is the reliability of that link? We see, you can imagine in the midst of a robotic surgery, the screen becoming screen freezing. So what are the quality standards, reliability, the downtimes? I think somebody must be working on this. Definitely Bell Labs, which has been the fountainhead of almost all the developments in telecommunication. Sir, I would like some illumination from you on these aspects, sir.
When it comes to bandwidth, first of all, bandwidth is extremely important. Number one is there is only so much of resource that we have available. When it comes to bandwidth, it's also a spectrum. How much spectrum is available? Which spectrum is available? If you go back to the protocols which are used in the past, TCP/IP protocols, those protocols are actually very much obsolete and outdated nowadays. There are newer protocols which are coming with a lot better digital comprehension, because what is required is, as more and more information is going to be available, as more and more data is going to be available, and it needs to be transmitted on a resource limited channels, which means a lot better compression has to happen, compression, decompression, on the transmitter and the receiver side. So there is work going on compression algorithms. But again, what happens is the data which is being produced nowadays with so many devices, the data is, there is a washing machine. Washing machine is producing, let's say, 2 bits, but there are multiple washing machines. And all these 2 bits of data from multiple washing machines will be crowded on the spectrum to be transmitted to a central place where it will be collected, or a washing machine from my home will transmit that data to my mobile phone, which means it's going to put a burden on the wireless channel, which it is using to transmit that data. Now, there are many protocols which have been developed so far using WiMAX and Bluetooth and 802.11 and various versions of 802.11. What is happening is, as more and more data comes in, the compression will be enhanced. But again, you can only compress to a certain level, because after that, it may not be feasible. If you cannot see, compression is what? Compression is basically, instead of transmitting the actual data, you are actually going to transmit an error. An error which requires much lesser number of bits, because the volume of error is much smaller compared to the actual data. So you can only do that to a certain level. Errors will be transmitted and errors will be decoded, and the data will be regenerated from the errors, which means there will be some linear or non-linear prediction that will be used in transmission. But again, work will continue, and more better protocols or algorithms will come up. The problem we are facing is, and 5G is addressing that to a certain extent, optimized use of spectrum. What it is doing is, instead of using macro cellular networks, it is using micro cellular networks, and instead of using conventional antenna, it is using phased array antenna. So there will be so many arrays for a single antenna, and there will be a focused line of sight from that array to an individual user, and then the bandwidth will be much better and data throughput will be much better. This is where actually they are also using something called OFDMA, orthogonal frequency multiplier division, because here the entire data gets scrambled. All the information of all the users is getting scrambled into one single channel, because otherwise you will need massive resource. And this scrambled signal is actually de-scrambled on the receiver side. That's why when it is scrambled and transmitted on the channel, it actually looks like a noise. But the signal is embedded in that, which is de-scrambled at the receiver side. So many things are happening like this, and new techniques are being used to compress the data. But yeah, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. And then 64 QAM and all that, it's already been used. But those were used 10, 15, 20 years ago, when the data was not to the level as it is today.
Any other question?
One more question, sir, if you permit me.
Sir, let's wait for some other question, some other person.
Yes, sir. I have posted a question on the chat box.
Please repeat it. I did not now. Please go ahead with the question.
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, yes. Yeah, sir. Institutes adopted digitalization, but digital transformation is focusing on new business model with agility, innovations, and business analytics. So, how institutes can compete with online platforms which are upcoming with the physical formats? So, it's big challenge for the physical institute like higher education institute to compete with online platforms.
No, what is happening is if you look at online platforms, let's take an example of Baiju. Baiju is an online platform, and Baiju is very famous. Or Khan's Academy. Khan's Academy is very famous. And that is exactly what I'm saying is actually instead of competing, and even NEP 2020 is recommending this, that an institute which has been delivering courses offline in campus has to start blending those with distance learning subjects as well, which means the infrastructure has to be set up even in the campus for the institute which is not offering online courses. So you have to start transmitting and courses on internet, on cloud, and let students take those. Even NEP 2026, MOOCs has to be part of curriculum. MOOCs are again online. So my take is the institute which is conventional, which is offering courses only on campus, has to change their delivery model. And they have to have a blended model now with online and offline both courses. I don't think there's a question of competing anymore. It's a question of adopting a new business model for the conventional institutes.
Any other question?
Yes, sir. But previous scenario, online
Yeah, please,
education.
Vikram, we'll see later on. Any other question from any other person?
Sir,
Please go ahead, sir.
can I come in?
Yeah, please go ahead, sir. We're listening to you.
I'm looking forward to some sort of a collaboration between academicians using all these systems, so artificial intelligence, so that as teachers and as trainers, so we get trained first in this and then we impart it to our students. So is there some sort of collaboration which we can do among ourselves to introduce this topic so that it becomes part of our DNA?
And it's a good point. We will take it forward. Let me see. We have some plans in our mind to adapt some of the technologies and see how we can use it as a part of forum.
Correct.
Teaching. So we are trying to develop. Let's see how do we proceed.
Okay.
Because we also need technological experts like Professor Patel for that.
Okay.
Thank you for that suggestion.
Definitely, I would like to be part of it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Any other question, please? Any other question? Professor Lakshmi Mohan, you have a question?
Quite an interesting session, especially because, we have students from business analytics. So I represent IPM Business School, and we have students who are already doing technology-based courses like business analytics, digital marketing and transformation, and also fintech. So I think this whole session has been very interesting, as well as going to be very useful for us. We also have our faculties who have attended this program. As you mentioned, sir, yes, there needs to be a lot of industry collaboration, which is necessary for us to enrich the course. And of course, we are into baby steps, but knowing that we are in, 4.0 industrial revolution, I think there is a lot of work that needs to happen. You rightly said it, be it empowering faculties or even the way higher education industry has to progress. So it was an excellent session. Thank you so much for your valuable insights.
Thank you. By the way, if anyone wants the copy of this presentation, Dr. Sengupta, either they can write to you or we can put it on the group.
No, what you can do it, you can send it to me. I'll send it the group. We have created a WhatsApp group for the people.
Okay.
We'll
Okay.
send it. We'll send it the group.
That will be great. Thank you.
Anybody else has got a question? You have got the 2 minutes to go. Anybody else?
Me, I will ask the question again. One more second question, sir.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Hello. Sir, I am one here again. Sir, when you talk of all these emerging technologies, there has to be some method of forecasting the bandwidth requirement for each service. Like a few years ago, when suddenly all the internet users started using 56 kilobits modem, whereas the network was designed for 4 kilohertz, voice only. So there was chaos and lot of traffic loss, and nobody got service, neither audio, neither speech nor data. Is there any mechanism to predict or to forecast the traffic so that the network can be dimensioned to carry the traffic? Because all the services require connectivity. That means someone has to put the infrastructure much before these technologies can be used. Yes, sir.
No, there are actually techniques which are constantly used for forecasting traffic patterns. Because if you look at wireless networks, when the wireless networks are deployed and the RF planning is done, when the RF planning is done, forecasting is actually used. What is the expected amount of traffic from a certain geography, and how many towers are going to be needed, and where these towers are going to be needed, and what will be the level of data in this tower. Take an example of a stadium. If there is a cricket stadium, sometimes when there is a match, there are about 60-70,000 people watching that in the stadium. And 80% of those are actually using mobile phones. So what happens is that stadium creates a huge surge for traffic and puts a lot of pressure on the infrastructure for the transmission. And that such scenarios are taken into account while doing the planning for the network. So when it comes to network planning, a lot of forecasting is used. But when it comes to bandwidth, actually the traffic forecast is converted into the bandwidth forecast. Because that traffic will generate X amount of data or information which will be transmitted. So it may not be exactly how much bandwidth, but more of how much traffic and what kind of traffic will be generated, how much voice, how much data, how much video, and all that needs to be transmitted.
Okay, Professor Sunil Patel, I think that was an outstanding and excellent session, to say the minimum. I think many of us have been excited by your, concept, but it's such a vast subject. It's very, 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 very difficult to cover up in 1 hour to 1 hour 10 minutes. And we look forward to your probably sessions on each individual pieces of them, like blockchain, like cryptocurrency.
Yes. Each technology needs a session.
Yes, each technology will put up. We will take a help of yours to get a faculty, or you yourself. We look forward to your support. Thank you very much for being with us, and thanks a lot to all for being with us.
Thank you.
Of this particular
Thank
session.
you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.